Racing fans, welcome. It's a challenging day for a race, and do we ever have a race for you with a world championship in the balance? Let's meet the principal. In this corner, in the blue helmet, the professor. Born in France and living in Switzerland, it's two-time world champion Alain Prost, and he's leading the points race with 84. He's got 688 wins under his belt and more victories than any other Formula One driver. And in this corner, in the yellow helmet, the challenger, Prost's hard-charging McLaren teammate, Brazilian Ayrton Senna, who trails the point leader with 79 points, but has 7 victories and 11 pole positions to his credit. These two meet to duke it out in the country of emperors, dominated by the profile of Mount Fuji on a magnificent track that's part of an amusement park. You remember what happened here last year? Briton Nigel Mansell lost control of his Williams Honda during Friday qualifying and sailed backwards into the tire barrier. The resultant back injuries knocked him out of the race and a shot at the world title. And Suzuka Circuit for round 15 of the World Drivers' Championship. The combatants are set, so let's get ready to rumble. The Suzuka Circuit is part of a huge amusement park complex owned by the Honda Motor Car Company. A big crowd is expected today. 10,000 came on Friday, a work day. Yesterday there were 50,000 people here, and officials say perhaps 200,000 might show up today for the Grand Prix on this very difficult track. 16 turns, 3.641 miles to the lap. How difficult? Well, on Friday, there were 16 separate off-course excursions. Here's Andrea de Cesaris losing control of his Real, going through the sand and ending up in the tire barrier. Later in the day, Briton Derek Wart got wide, ran over a storm drain cover that came up and tore the right side of his arrows off. Wart rode his car to a stop through the sand and finally had to get out. How did he get back to the pits? Well, he used an old American method. He hitchhiked. And who picked him up? But fellow competitor Gerhard Berger, who rode him to the pits on the back of his Ferrari. Okay, I'm Chris Economaki here with David Hobbs for the Japanese Grand Prix, one of the more exciting races, and our colleague John Bizignano is down on the pit road right now.
Thank you very much, Chris. We are right down on the track where the cars will be gridding in just a few minutes. Actually, the main story throughout the pit lane is the weather, something that no one can control. A little frustrating to the F1 engineers, but the weather has changed. We're down to about 45 degrees. Now, that's much colder than the morning warm-up and a lot colder than the qualifying sessions on Friday and Saturday. What that has done is given the turbocharged cars about 3% less fuel economy throughout this race. Bad news for Ferrari, Megatron, and even the very fuel-efficient Hondas are going to have trouble finishing this race at maximum power settings. Also in this morning's warm-up, Ayrton Senna was fastest, but two normally aspirated cars, Mansell and Boutsen, came second and third. Prost is fourth, so there's going to be a lot of dicing in the front of this grid. It's going to have to be an intelligent race for every turbocharged car driver to actually get through it with the fuel he has on board. Tire stops, they will come only if it rains, and we have had several rain cells moving through the area. There could be a lot of pit action.
A new face in Formula One is the man at the wheel of this car, Aguri Suzuki of Japan, 27 years old, racing for 9 years, having started in karts. He replaces Yannick Dalmas of France, who is back in his native country suffering from a malaise. And now let's take a look at how they'll face the starter's flag here. On the pole, Ayrton Senna, the 12th pole position of the season out of 15, his 28th career pole, tying him for second with Juan Manuel Fangio, only 5 behind the great Jim Clark. Sharing the front row will be Senna's teammate Alain Prost, going for a 3rd world championship and the 35th win of a record career. Gerhard Berger, last year's winner here, is next for Ferrari. And then it's Ivan Capelli and a non-turbo Mark Judd doing very well. He's from Italy. Next in the lineup, 3-time world driving champion Nelson Piquet of Brazil in a Lotus Honda. And then Satoru Nakajima, hero of the fans, in his best qualifying run ever in a Camel Lotus Honda. Derek Warwick of England in an Arrows Megatron, always smiling. And then Briton Nigel Mansell, who had his troubles here last year in a Williams Judd. Michele Alboreto of Italy, soon to leave Ferrari, is next in the starting order. Then it's Belgian Thierry Boutsen, a hot driver in a Benetton Ford. Following Boutsen in the lineup, Italian Riccardo Patrese, Judd. And then Alessandro Nannini, yet another Italian and one of the young comers from sunny Italy. And then it's Mauricio Gugelmin of Brazil, a first-year Formula One driver, and Andrea de Cesaris of Italy, one of the veterans. Jonathan Palmer of Great Britain, and America's own Eddie Cheever in an Arrow. Pierluigi Martini of Italy and Philippe Struff of France in row 9. And then Philippe Alliot of France and Aguri Suzuki in his first Formula One drive. Alex Caffey of Italy and Luis Parisala of Spain. René Arnoux of France and Nicola Larini, another first-year driver from Italy. And in the last row, Bernd Schneider of West Germany and Julian Bailey of England. And now, this circuit, rather narrow because it was built for motorcycles, is going to take a look. David Hobbs, what about it?
Well, we're going to follow Satoru Nakajima on a tour around this very difficult 3.6-mile course. He's coming onto the pit straight here, and we're going to see some interesting stuff here. The Honda telemetry on this car is going to give us a show of the gears that he's going to use and the speeds he's going to reach. Here he goes into turn 1, which is flat out, very close to flat out in 6th. Changes down to 4th, into 3rd as he takes the second part of that curve. And then we come to what they call the S's. As you can see, it's a series of lefts and rights, and he's going up and down to the gearbox all the way through this series of curves. And the speed fluctuates here round about 150 to 200 kilometers an hour. Coming into this long left-hander, this one here, he's down into 4th. Stays in 4th all the way through there, accelerates up through the gears again, and it comes to another right-hander. As you can see, the course is a very odd shape. We also have an individual thing here, a unique thing for racing tracks, race course. He goes under the track there. There's a flyover there. Coming down to the hairpin. This is a tight left-hand corner. Takes that in 2nd gear, accelerates up, out of the corner again. What I was saying is, because of the hills here, this track has been forced into this very sinuous-looking shape, coming down to what they call the spoon curve now. As you can see, it's a double or triple apex corner, a very tricky corner. And you can also see from the shape of this track, there's not an awful lot of places you can overtake. Coming onto one of the only 2 straights here now, as he goes up to 6th gear again here, up to about 185 miles an hour. Here's a place where in the race they'll be able to do some overtaking, breaking into that left-hander. Not a great spot, but at least one of the places. Now coming to the chicane. Very slow chicane here, probably down to 1st here. And this is another place they'll be able to overtake going into, and the more powerful cars will be able to overtake coming out of that corner. So Nakajima's lap comes to an end, and with about 28 shifts per lap, these guys are going to be very busy this afternoon.
188 miles an hour top speed in practice, and we'll be back for the start. Stay tuned. ESPN Speed World Formula One coverage of the Grand Prix of Japan is brought to you by Goodrich TA. Little interested in this race. In near freezing weather Saturday night, some 20,000 fans slept outside the track so they could get in early Sunday morning. The crowd may well be one of Japan's largest, with close to 200,000 expected for the contest. Now, our John Bizignano is down at trackside with the latest on what may be in the Japanese Grand Prix.
Thank you very much, Chris. And of course, the story down here on the grid is the weather. Right before the start of this Grand Prix, it has started to rain, and the team managers are going crazy trying to decide what kind of tires to put on the cars. Let's bring you up to date. Technically, McLaren, they are A-OK with Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost. He has changed the pop-off valve, Prost. It was untested on the car until this point, but they do seem happy with it in the few laps he did coming to the grid. Ferrari, Berger, and Alboreto, absolutely okay. No problems whatsoever, although they are changing the aerodynamics on the front wings just slightly to try and get a little bit more downforce on the front in case this bad weather does continue. March, Capelli, they had an oil light go on in the morning warm-up, and they have changed to a new motor in that car. It only did 2 laps coming onto the grid, but they say it is A-OK. Lotus has told us that they are in better shape than they have been all year long. They are looking for a podium for either one of their drivers. Arrows, they were not able to make one really clear lap in the warm-up with lots of engine problems. They're a little bit unsteady as far as what's going to happen when that green light comes on. The Williams boys, they are absolutely in great shape, and Benetton says the only problem they've had all weekend long is trying to get the sandwiches into the garage on time. So they seem pretty confident. Back to you, Chris, but watch the weather.
At 45 degrees, this will be the coldest Grand Prix of the year. A slight wind at 20 miles an hour, high humidity, 62%, with possible rain before the race is over. The fans, who know this weather far better than we do, have brought their umbrellas, and many of them are open, so they are expecting rain. However, the drivers are not, otherwise they'd be on rain tires. They're on the slicks, and here is the tire warming up process, the zigging and the zagging back and forth. In temperature, David, what does that do to the tread surfaces?
Well, of course, it puts a lot of temperature into the tire. It makes the sidewalls work. They grip on the track, and it builds temperature up in the tires because the tire pressure changes a lot from the beginning of the race to when the tires reach their operating temperature. So these guys like to put some temperature into the tire before they start. If you obviously put them up to the race pressure before the race starts, they would go right off the end of the scale during the race. If you have them too low, the pressure too low before the race starts, then the cars are very unstable on those opening laps. So these guys have to start with a low pressure and try and put some temperature and pressure back into those tires on this warm-up lap.
Well, the last few races, the starts have seen Alain Prost do a far better job than his arch-rival Ayrton Senna. However, should it rain, Senna does have a better rain reputation than Prost does.
There's another interesting thing. Right behind Ivan Capelli are the two Lotuses, and right behind them is Derek Warwick in the Megatron Arrow, one of the Megatron Arrow cars. This is the best, probably cumulative qualifying time that all three of those cars have had this year. Nelson Piquet there in 5th spot, right behind him on the same time, Nakajima in the second Lotus, and right behind them is Derek Warwick. Very, very good qualifying effort by all three of these cars. It'll be interesting to see if they can maintain that sort of pace in the race. Derek had a very miserable warm-up this morning.
That's true. He was very poor. There's Ayrton Senna on the left, Alain Prost on the right, and everyone in Formula One racing is waiting to see which one of these two men is going to have the advantage. The distance between the rows here seems to be greater than at some of the other tracks. So Prost is about 2 car lengths behind Senna. We're watching the light now. 51 laps on this racetrack, 3.641 miles to the lap for what really amounts to the World Driving Championship.
If Senna pulls this one off, he's won the championship. Senna put his visor up there, which would indicate the temperature is low. He doesn't want to miss up that visor here on the starting grid. Waiting for the cars to pull up behind there before the red light comes on, and then we've got about 7 seconds until the green shows and the Grand Prix is on.
A great crowd. There's the red. Let's watch now and see who gets the edge of this show. And look at Prost! And Senna! Prost is the shot at the field. Side to side to get by. A problem with Ayrton Senna. Where is he? Back to Alain Prost. Jumps to immediately with Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari second. What a surprise! Where is Ayrton Senna?
Ayrton Senna is right in the middle of that pack. There he is at about 19th spot, and what a great start from Prost and Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari. Gerhard Berger won this race almost from flag to flag last year, obviously hoping to repeat the same thing this year, and if he does, and Prost finishes second and Senna finishes third, the championship is alive and open until the Grand Prix of Adelaide in just 2 weeks' time.
Wow, they were swinging out. What a remarkable start, and the fans from Brazil have a great disappointment there with their driver Ayrton Senna having a bad start and falling to midfield.
Well, this is just another. There we see a replay of the start now. And Senna obviously stalls the car. Berger does a great job to miss him, as does Nakajima in the second Lotus there.
What do you think happened there?
Well, I think he just stalled it, quite frankly. He must have done. I mean, what else could have gone wrong? Unless it dropped out of gear or something like that.
Well, think of this one moment that may cost the Brazilian Ayrton Senna the World Driving Championship.
Oh, look at this gaggle coming down for fourth. Capelli has broken away. Berger really giving Alain Prost here a tough time. Not far behind them is Ivan Capelli in the first normally aspirated car, and then a whole bunch of cars behind them. But just look at these two guys going for the lead here on this relatively narrow track, and look at the lead they have already.
They've left everyone. It's remarkable, the performance of these cars compared to the performance of the rest of the field, and Capelli is gaining.
Well, of course, that just shows the advantage of the turbo cars, or that's what we would normally say, except for the fact that Ivan Capelli is so close to them in his normally aspirated Judd-powered March.
Those Judd engines have been improving in every single race. It's now a 3-car race. Alain Prost, Gerhard Berger, and Ivan Capelli. A turbocharged Honda, a turbocharged Ferrari, and a free-breathing Judd engine in a March chassis. 1, 2, and 3 in the early laps here at the Japanese Grand Prix.
Now, it looked to me like Gerhard Berger made a motion here. I was wondering if he's pulling off one of the tear-off strips on his visor, which would mean that maybe Prost is dropping some fluid behind him. Yes, you see it coming out there you see it coming out of the breather on Alain Prost's car. I fear that this does not bode well for the long-term hopes of Alain Prost in this race. There we see the hairpin again. That looks like Nigel Mansell going onto the inside, and Nigel Mansell's lost his nose there.
How about that?
On Derek Warwick's car.
And here they're getting ready in the pit, and actually they're putting it on there. Ivan Capelli is keeping his Japanese sponsors, Leighton House, which is a big Japanese real estate holding company, happy in this contest. And look at the quick work here by the Williams team, captained by Patrick Head. So right now, Prost is heading Berger. We'll count back now to see where Mr. Senna is not shown in the top 6. He's out of the points right now.
Senna is a long way back, but I don't like the look of that mist of spray coming out of Alain Prost's engine breather there. Does not look good to me at all already. As I said earlier, Berger has had to pull off a strip off his visor. I would say that Prost's race... Obviously, it's hard to say at this stage, but he'd be lucky to finish this race.
In the top 6 position, we've got 3 turbo cars and 3 normally aspirated cars, and that's a surprise this early in the competition. Right now, Mr. Berger seems to be unable to close the gap on Alain Prost.
Well, of course, if Alain Prost really is dropping a lot of fluid, Berger's going to drop back because he can't keep on tearing pull-off strips off his visors. He won't have that many on there, and he may be just prepared to let Alain Prost go because he knows that Ayrton Senna's going to have a heck of a job to catch him up again after that appalling start. I don't know what went wrong. No, there's Senna up to...
there's Alvaretto in 4th, and Senna is up to 6th. There's
Boots and
5th, Senna's 6th. He's in the points.
There's a guy that's doing well. On the right of that picture then was Jonathan Palmer, who qualified well and ran very well this morning in the morning warm-up. Ooh, you see that spray coming out the back of Prost's car? Does not look good to me.
Now we have an interval timing, almost 10 seconds between the leader, Alain Prost, and his arch rival for the championship, Ayrton Senna, back in 6th place. With the weather cold and the racing hot to the Japanese Grand Prix. Stand by for more. The ultimate goal of any Formula One driver is the World Driving Championship, an exalted list headed by Argentine Juan Manuel Fangio, who won the coveted title 5 times starting in 1951. Other multi-winners include Sir Jack Brabham of Australia, Jackie Stewart of Scotland, Niki Lauda of Austria, and Nelson Piquet of Brazil. And Alain Prost of France, with 2 world titles to his credit, wants to move on to this list. And of course, Ayrton Senna, who is yet to win a world championship, is also wanting to get on that list with his first one. Now here we have Gerhard Berger being pursued hotly by Ivan Capelli. David, aren't you surprised that that non-turbo car can do so well against him? Look at him on the inside there, pulling abreast of Berger. He's going to go inside him in the corner. How about that Capelli with an underpowered car passing a turbo Ferrari?
And not only passing, but passing right at the end of the straight. And as he goes through these curves, you can see him already stretching his lead over Gerhard Berger, and it makes you wonder whether, in fact, he'll be able to put some catch up some ground on Alain Prost. Ivan Capelli now in 2nd place. What a drive in a normally aspirated car.
You know, it's like racing on your home track. Leighton House is a Japanese holding company, and they're the sponsors of this blue car that just went past the red one. I guess when you get your rooters there cheering for you, you find something extra.
Well, of course, Leighton House is becoming quite a force in motor racing now. They have, in fact, bought a large percentage of March cars themselves. Of course, March cars make a lot of Indy cars. There's Ron Dennis, the McLaren team owner, chief, and he has been in one of the Honda engineers. I wonder what they're talking about.
You know, they have the telemetry which tells them exactly what's going on those Honda engine cars, and we wonder if anything can go the other way, David. Can they do anything, make an adjustment on the engine controlled by radio from the pits?
Well, I'm not sure, but it can only be a matter of time before they will be able to do that. The sort of stories you hear about their data collecting is awesome. There we see them again, looking at the screens there, trying to diagnose what's wrong or what's going with these cars of Prost and Senna.
The pressure's on these gentlemen here. They're in their home country and they must deliver. Here's Ivan Capelli and Gerhard Berger, 2nd and 3rd in the Japanese Grand Prix, rounding one of the super fast corners on this beautiful Suzuka circuit.
Gerhard Berger there using more road than Capelli as they come into the chicane, down into 1st gear, I'm sure, for Capelli as he swings through there. The March cars really showing some good form this year.
And here we have our leader, Alain Prost, who got off to a great start and a surprising debacle at the starting line by his teammate Ayrton Senna, whose engine almost died once, perhaps twice. Here he has the fastest lap now, 1:48.425, 120.878 miles an hour. And Senna has just picked up the fastest lap as he carves his way through the traffic and is trying to get back in contention.
Well, they're setting the fastest laps early on in the race, but there's still a long way to go from the record. Gerhard Berger has got the lap record last year at 1:43, but of course these cars are still pretty well almost full of fuel.
Well, of course, they had 200 more horsepower last year. These engines have been cut way back on their power output by the turbocharger boost limitation, but still a great race, and they're doing a fine job out here on this racetrack. There are the standings now after 6 laps. Alain Prost of France, Ivan Capelli of Italy, Gerhard Berger of Austria, Ayrton Senna of Brazil up to 4th place, Thierry Boutsen of Belgium, and Michele Alboreto of Italy, with 4.9 seconds separating the 1st and 2nd place drivers.
And of course the normally aspirated cars of Capelli and Boutsen putting on a good show here, but there we see in fact Thierry Boutsen rounding that tight left-hand hairpin, running now in 5th spot.
It looks like Mr. Senna is trying to prove himself, David, after making that gap at the start. I wonder if that was a human error or did something happen to his car?
Well, I would say he probably stalled it, or nearly stalled it. It can't have been anything else, or he misselected the wrong gear. I would say that it was definitely some sort of human error there. But those standing starts are always a lottery, and of course, being at the front of the grid like he was extremely lucky not to be hit by anybody else behind him.
Well, he knows this track. You know, Senna's just finishing up his 5th season of Formula One racing. His first Formula One Grand Prix was the Brazilian round of 1984, and he certainly has made his mark in these 5 seasons. It will end with our coverage of the Australian Grand Prix on the 13th of November.
Well, of course, his power of qualifying is his most awesome attribute, probably. This year, he's been on the pole so many times, and already he's jumped right into 2nd overall, equaling Fangio with 28 poles, and will almost certainly next year surpass Jimmy Clark's total.
In the last few moments, Ivan Capelli set up the best lap time and followed momentarily by Thierry Boutsen, who now holds the honor of being the fastest man on the track. Here's Michele Alboreto taking a sand bath in his Ferrari. Tough break for the Italian. He's headed for the unemployment line after the last race of this year, and here we have the leader, Alain Prost, the professor, smoothly wheeling the car around. Great color scheme on his helmet, David.
Well, yes, he's showing the colors of France the best, and Ivan Capelli, I'm sure, is catching him up there, which would be absolutely amazing if Capelli could make ground on Prost, although we saw him do that in the Portuguese Grand Prix just a few weeks back. Prost, of course, got a lot of pressure on him today. He does want to join that list, as you said earlier. Here we see Alboreto back on the track. Oh, we see how he got up in the first place now.
Interesting there.
He didn't get tagged. He got just slightly nudged by, that looked like one of the Benetton cars there.
And there on the map of the circuit, we see right where he had his problems as Alain Prost continues to set the pace in this Japanese Grand Prix, and Ivan Capelli getting closer and closer. And Alain Prost weaves his way through the slower part of the course. Capelli 2nd, Berger 3rd as the Japanese Grand Prix unfolds. We'll be back for more after these messages. Saw the leader moving in on Alain Prost. It may be a tough battle. If Capelli should win, it'll be the first time a normally aspirated car. There he is, 3.5 seconds, and Senna is still further than 12 seconds behind, but he's in 4th place, and those points count. If Capelli should be able to pass Prost and win this race, it'll be the first time a car without a turbocharger has won since the 1983 Detroit Grand Prix, taken by Michele Alboreto in one of the Tyrrell Fords. Over 80 races have been run, all won by turbo cars, and here comes Ivan Capelli.
And the fact does remain that Ivan Capelli is pulling away, for instance, from Ayrton Senna. He must be, because of the time gap between Senna and Prost. He's also pulled away a lot from Gerhard Berger since passing him just a few laps before, and he is definitely making ground on our leader, Alain Prost, which is pretty exceptional for this driver-car combination here at Suzuka.
The question I have to raise now is the one of tires. These tires, the Suzuka circuit is very smooth. It's not too abrasive. I don't think it's too tough on tires, but the pace they're setting here may be a tire wear circuit, and I wonder if we'll see any stops later on for replacement rubber.
Well, funnily enough, they say that this circuit is a bit tough on tires. The circuit, the compound of the circuit is a bit hard on the tires. They use the brakes here very, very much, very, very hard. As you can see, here's a good case in point as they come into that hairpin from pretty high speed. And apparently tire wear, I don't think day with the temperature as it is at the moment is going to be a real problem, but it might be.
Okay, here's the next battle as Ayrton Senna tries to polish off Gerhard Berger, last year's winner here. He's moving in on him, trying to get closer and closer to Alain Prost and preserve an opportunity to win the 1988 World Driving Championship.
Makes a lot of ground there on the brakes on Gerhard Berger, and not far behind these two is Thierry Boutsen. There we see him just coming into the picture in the second of the normally aspirated cars. Prost being closed in on Capelli. Capelli down to 2.6 seconds now, from just over 3 seconds. Only one lap to go. Pretty good going.
Senna's looking good out here right now, but there are those in Formula One who say that starting 3 races ago, he's lost his momentum.
And there's Nelson Piquet, the current world champion, the reigning world champion at the moment, stuck in the sand in his Lotus Honda. As I said earlier on at the beginning, both these Lotus Hondas, him and Nakajima, qualified better than they've qualified for any race this year, but it looks as if Nelson Piquet is out of this race, unless they manage to get him out of the sand.
Soft sand. There we go. That's it. We got the Armstrong method going here. Here's another look.
Oop, did it all on his own. Can't blame anybody else for that. It obviously must be very, very slippery going into that hairpin.
Well, the cold day, David, and the tire warmers and so forth. Play a part in such an episode as this?
Well, this far in the race, his tires should be up to real operating temperature now, but if someone's spraying a bit of oil down there, it'll obviously make it slippery. It doesn't matter how warm your tires are. Slippery, slippery.
You know, think what's going through Piquet's mind right now, waiting to get pushed off. Eternity, huh?
Chagrin.
Right,
to use a French word. Ayrton Senna has got around Gerhard Berger.
Wow.
Gerhard Berger's been closed in on by Thierry Boutsen, and now all that Senna has between him and the lead is old Ivan Capelli, who's done yet again the fastest lap of the race in 47.3. 1 minute 47.3.
122.06 miles an hour. This is a great automobile race we're seeing, and Formula One has got better and better with every race since that day in Brazil where Alain Prost took off and left.
Poor old Gerhard Berger's not having a good day. If you remember this time last year in a Ferrari, he shot off at the drop of the flag and promptly disappeared from view of everybody. But today he's being everybody's all over him like a cheap suit, and now old Thierry Boutsen.
Senna is still more than 12 seconds behind Alain Prost, but Capelli has moved to within 2 seconds of Alain Prost. Mr. Capelli is surprising everyone here at Suzuka, including the occupants of this announce booth. During practice, we had a chance to ask if it was true that there are no good places to pass.
No, here there are 2 or 3 places where it's really not difficult to overtake another driver. The most exciting part is after the long straight in front of the pits. After this, there is a twisty part of the circuit going up to the hill, and it's really difficult and really technical.
Well, Capelli has wound him in. Now, of course, all he's got to do now is get by him. I mean, he's in the critical striking distance now. He can't get any closer than that without passing the guy. And the question is, can he pull it off? It's going to be tough to get past Prost. I don't think Prost, knowing that Senna's now third, I don't think Prost is going to give up too easy.
And Ivan Capelli is a new and interesting challenger for Alain Prost. Hang in there. We'll be back for more of the Japanese Grand Prix. There's action in the pits. Here's John Visignano.
Thank you, Chris. It is Piquet coming into the pits after that off-track excursion. They are definitely changing all tires, but they're also having a quick look at some of the suspension and bodywork. The engine is revving. They're doing something down inside the cockpit, almost like they're trying to tighten his seat belts back down. The tire boys are ready to go, but they're not quite finished in the cockpit. They are definitely doing up his seat belts. He may have undid his seat belts during the off-track excursion. Piquet back out on the circuit.
Look at this. Here's the battle for first and second now. Alain Prost, the red and white number 11 Marlboro McLaren, one of the finest racing machines ever designed, and the ever-improving March with a Judd engine at the hands of Ivan Capelli, Italy's newest young superstar, on his way right on his back.
Nelson gnashing his teeth, leaving the pits
Less than half a second. And now Senna has finally gotten under 12 seconds behind Prost. Senna has a clear track. There's nobody between him and Capelli. There's nobody to fight, so now he can really let it go. With about 37 laps left to go, can Ayrton Senna move up? Catch and pass Alain Prost is the big question. I personally doubt it unless Prost has mechanical problems, but it's interesting to think about.
Well, it's going to be interesting to think if Capelli wins this race and Prost should finish second and Senna third, that still keeps the championship alive through Adelaide, and of course you'll all be watching with bated breath as ESPN go down under to the Antipodes to bring you live the Australian Grand Prix from Adelaide.
All right, Ivan Capelli now has fallen back a few car lengths behind Alain Prost. David, what's on Ivan Capelli's mind now? He's obviously got the power. He's obviously got the power to close on Alain Prost. If you were in Capelli's shoes right now, would you move up and try to pass, or would you wait a while and study Prost's methods and find out if there's a weak point? Is there an Achilles heel to his lap style on this racetrack?
You've just said it all, Chris. That's about what he's doing. Ooh! There's Gugelmin. Capelli's teammate has just had to let Nakajima through in the other turbocharged Lotus. So that's keeping Honda hopes alive there. Nakajima putting on a pretty good display this afternoon. Well, the whole weekend, in fact. But to go back to Capelli and Prost, yes, I would sit and watch for a little bit. Of course, if Alain Prost is still dropping fluid, it may be that Capelli's not in too much of a rush because he thinks he's going to do it anyway. Here we see him come into the corner. Bit of wheel locking goes on here on the heart of Nakajima. Gugelmin makes room for him in the end, and a clean pass takes place. There's Peter Waugh, the team manager of Lotus. It looks like it's raining in there, but it obviously isn't raining. Otherwise, these guys would be coming in for
different rubber.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of racetracks it rains at one end, it doesn't rain at the other end. I don't feel any rain where I'm sitting.
It's dry in the booth, that is for absolute sure. Prost, the master. I mean, you just never know, of course, with these turbocharged guys, how much they've got in hand in terms of boost. I mean, Prost could probably turn the boost up and give himself a bit of a leg up, but then he might run out of fuel, too.
All right, Dave, with the wings on these cars and all the aerodynamic appurtenances on these race cars, we hear so much about drafting and stock car racing. What about the air directly behind Alain Prost, and what is that air for Ivan Capelli? Is it a help or is it a hindrance?
Well, it does just exactly the same as it does in stock car racing. It makes a hole. In stock car racing, that's good because it gives the guy behind less drag. He can go as fast as the guy in front and catch up. In this type of racing, it makes a hole and he loses downforce, and it's not such a good thing.
With 15 of 51 laps in the books and Alain Prost leading, the rain tires at the ready. Stay tuned. We'll be back for more.
So Capelli is old Prost can land through now, and just look at that atmosphere being whipped up now.
Right, you can just see the condensation coming off the wings. That's amazing. My, one of the cute LaRousse Calmels cars directly in front of the leader, Agura Suzuki, and Capelli right there. Now, obviously, Prost had to slow a little bit for that.
Yeah, there
Look
goes
at this,
Capelli.
for the lead on the outside, and the non-turbo takes the lead from Alain Prost. What a pass! What a pass, but it's not over yet.
Not over yet. Not over yet by a long shot. Boy, what a great deal that was by Capelli. He took the advantage when Prost just gave up a little bit because of Suzuki in front of him, and of course Capelli.
That's the difference, David, between youth and enthusiasm and age and experience. Prost did not want to take the chance, and Capelli was prepared to take the chance.
But Alain Prost did keep his foot in it and didn't let him through in the end. And, of course, you never know just how much more extra horsepower that Prost had down that straight. But Capelli really, really is giving Prost a tremendous run at the moment.
Italian comedian is really fired up. You know, he's the jokester on the Formula One circuit. He comes around with practical jokes. He showed up at the first race with his arm in a cast, a plaster cast, telling his team owners that he'd broken his arm, but he was prepared to drive with his arm in a cast, and they were shocked. And, of course, he had it cut off. He was okay. He was just having fun with them.
Well, he's not having fun with Prost today. I mean, this guy is deadly serious, and he's putting on a great display here in Japan this afternoon.
Well, you see, that was a case of Prost playing it safe and Capelli playing it for all it was worth.
Well, of course, Capelli has to play it for all it's worth, because if the chips are down Alan Prost has got about another 100 horsepower to play with and can always pull away and knows he can, but so does Capelli. Capelli would want to get in front. It's more important for Capelli to be in front than it is for Prost at the moment, and he really wants to get in front and try and dictate the race himself. And Prost knows that he can really dictate the race with his horsepower. But of course, Prost all the time is worried about the guy that just came into the top right-hand corner of our picture there before it changed, and that is Ayrton Senna, who must be now within just 3 or 4 seconds. Oh, there's Derek Warwick. Again, that same corner, spinning off into the sand, but this time, obviously, there you see the car up, skimming across the top. But you just see how effective that sand is. I mean, it is unbelievably effective at stopping the cars.
Well, I wonder if that turn is wet, David.
Well, it may be that it's been a bit damp there all the time. We've seen 3 major spins there. Senna now is only 5.5 seconds behind.
He has
Alan
really picked up. This is going to be some climax to this competition. Stay tuned, everybody.
Alan Prost picking his way carefully through the traffic, and I just know Senna will be nothing like as careful. 5.5 seconds behind.
He has knocked almost 6 seconds off that interval in the last few laps when he's had the clear track. It's obvious that Senna needs an open track. His car is not nearly as fast when he's in traffic.
Thierry Boutsen, I noticed, is only just 2 seconds behind Senna, so he too has closed on Senna. So there's another normally aspirated engine. Of course, that's a Ford engine. The engine in Capelli's car is a Judd, and both those normally aspirated engines doing a very, very good job here today in Suzuka, because it's a relatively high-speed circuit. It's relatively high average speed, 128, 126 mile an hour.
Well, Mr. Professor, cool and calm with his red gloves, gripping that steering wheel, moving from side to side on the Suzuka circuit here in central Japan. Down near sea level where the engines can get all the horsepower they need. And a big crowd here on the track owned by Honda. It's located just behind a huge amusement park that you have to go through to get to the grandstand to get out of the ground. So they get you with the popcorn and the cotton candy on your way in. Here's Mr. Capelli still hanging in there every inch of the way.
There we see now then. Okay.
Now we got 3 cars directly in front of the leader. Let's see how Mr. Capelli handles the traffic as opposed to the methods Prost uses.
And that's one of those
Look
cars.
at Senna back there.
Yeah, not too far behind. And one of those cars that are coming up the lap is Rene Arnoux, who's not noted for his gentlemanly behavior in traffic. And Prost knows that. So it's going to be interesting to see how he handles it. There's Senna swinging through that corner.
He said he has an ever-widening tread. We used to have a driver in America in midget car racing who could make his car wider, it seemed, in the corners when he's about to be passed.
The difference now has gone up again, 6 seconds, so he's picked up half a second there.
Well, he's in traffic, David. As I said before, Senna needs the clear track to really get that thing going.
Well, speaking for myself, I like it. Ooh, what happened there? Oh, nothing. There we see the crossover. Very well graphically illustrated there. And
here's Mr. Capelli.
Good. Prost is coming to that track. Oh, Arnoux lets him through. That looks like a Ferrari there. That must have had a problem. It is, in fact, Alboreto.
Yeah, they're the standings there. 18 laps at Prost, Capelli, and Ayrton Senna, 1, 2, and 3.
Thierry Boutsen hanging in there in 4th. Capelli still right there with the leader. Look at that. Ayrton Senna's caught right up. Now he's right behind.
He's knocking on their doors. He can see them now. With Ivan the Terrific challenging the Professor for the lead, and Ayrton Senna moving in. It's the Japanese Grand Prix. Terry Boutsen, Gerhard Berger, and Alessandro Nannini rounding out the top 6. Stay tuned. We'll be back for more.
Brought to you by USF&G Financial Services. Asset management tools for a brave new world.
The science of aerodynamics in Formula One is becoming so sophisticated that the teams are actually filling this very small gap between the front wing and the chassis. They use a simple silicone-type filler that can be found in any hardware store. The gap itself is maybe only less than 1/16 of an inch in size, but it does help the airflow over the front end of the wings and chassis. We asked the Aeros team management how much of an on-track advantage filling that very small gap is, and they said, John, it's too small to measure, except maybe in our drivers' minds.
There we see, that's a nice aerial shot.
Great helicopter shot.
As you can see, Capelli not making up much ground there through that long sweeper, but he does make up just a little bit there going into that one. On the exit, Alain Prost makes a massive leap forward. That's that turbocharged engine.
Exactly. Not too many places, and now Senna's passed Capelli.
Capelli must have had a problem.
Yeah, it looked as though he dropped back sharply.
Too suddenly, yeah.
Missed a shift or something. But here now, it's
the Dallara, Alex Caffey and the Dallara.
Here's the story of Formula One. Oh, yes.
Oh, Capelli's out. What a shame.
A tough break. But we've got now again the same old story in Formula One. Marlboro, McLaren, Honda, 1 and 2. Which one will win? A tough break for Ivan Capelli. Coming up now.
Looks like gearbox to me. The way that car, just a few seconds ago, we saw it shaking a lot on the overrun there as it rolled towards the pit. I wonder if he's broken a ring and pinion or something like that.
Now, as Ayrton Senna closes on Alain Prost, what we're going to see here, if we see a pass, it will be a pass that means the World Driving Championship.
If he passes him and maintains that position in front of Alain Prost, you're absolutely right. That is the World Championship. If they finish the way they are at the moment, it's still open until Adelaide. But look at that, 0.7 of a second.
Hutzenberger, Nannini, and Patrese trail the two McLarens, 3rd through 6th, with Boutsen the only one possible to mount a challenge here at about 4.6 seconds behind the leader.
And he has dropped back. Well, he's dropped back those 4 seconds because he was right behind Ayrton Senna, but Senna's really got the bit between his teeth now and is off after Alain Prost, his teammate. No real love lost between these two, despite what they all say, what they both say about each other. Ayrton Senna wants his championship in the worst possible way.
I'm sure he wants it badly. David, what about the chances he's prepared to take? He took some in Portugal, really bold and not too good chances. What kind of team orders prevail here? And how obedient is Ayrton Senna as a driver? And, you know, how bold is he as a driver under these circumstances?
Well, I think the team orders in the McLaren Honda outfit are pretty laissez-faire. I mean, it's let the best man win. Obviously, the team would say to these drivers, don't go and take each other out of the race, especially take both out. But on the other hand, yeah, anybody can win this race if they want to. Look at that, Alain Prost again. He's got the fastest lap of the race, so he's not giving up. I mean, Alain Prost is not turning over and letting Ayrton Senna take this championship away from him.
He always saves a little something, doesn't he?
Yeah, he certainly does.
Well, David, you know, Ron Dennis told me that at the beginning of the season, halfway through the season, there were no team orders. He says, and there won't be any team orders unless there has to be. And I think after Portugal, there had to be some team orders with that episode that we saw there.
Ooh, nasty place there for Prost to get balked. So they go through that fast, you see. What happened there? Right behind him now is old Senna. Now, that was a bit unfortunate for Alain Prost. That's the sort of thing that happen in traffic. I mean, you win some and you lose some. And you just can't dictate where it's going to strike you. You can only do the very best you can with it when it does strike.
Well, there, the advantage is still Prost, but by a very slim margin now. Here we have Senna, who had gained so much ground on Prost, and now he's just sitting there 10 car lengths back. With 21 of 51 laps on the score sheet, Alain Prost of France leads his teammate Ayrton Senna of Brazil. Thierry Boutsen of Belgium is 3rd. Gerhard Berger of Austria is 4th. Alessandro Nannini is 5th, and Riccardo Patrese is 6th, both from Italy. Nakajima of Japan and Cheever of the United States round out the top 8. We'll be back for more in a minute. Kurt Marlboro.
Meanwhile, today's all-star cast here in Japan is still being led by Alain Prost of France, followed very closely now by his teammate Ayrton Senna, both, of course, in Honda McLaren cars.
Well, Prost's dream of a 3rd World Championship is getting dimmer and dimmer by the moment as Senna closes in. Now, Nigel Mansell's out of the race. Let's take a look back at what happened to him. David?
Going into the chicane, Nigel just got a little bit opportunistic, tried to get inside Nelson Piquet, whose corner it still was, just marginally, and it's obviously sidelined Nigel. shaking his left. Ooh, he's obviously hit his elbow or something on the monocoque there, I'd imagine, when he took that wild ride over the curb, and it was a wild ride.
And that was a hard landing. It's his second hard landing in 2 years here at this Suzuka circuit. Last year, he was knocked out of the competition in a practice crash. In the meantime, Alain Prost now knows full well that Ayrton Senna is right behind him and closing as this race gets closer and closer to a finish. If Ayrton Senna passes Alain Prost, he will be the 1988 World Driving Champion and into traffic now. Prost has said time and time again this year that he doesn't want to take risks. I think he's going to have to change his thinking if he wants to win today.
Well, he's up behind Andrea de Cesaris at the moment, and that's always a risk trying to get around him. And in front of de Cesaris is Gugelmin, Capelli's teammate. And as this traffic slows Prost up, there, right on his tail, is Ayrton Senna as they come onto the main straight.
And look from above as Senna moves in the left, and he slipstream by and slingshot by for the lead as Ayrton Senna of Brazil passes Alain Prost of France for the #1 spot. What a surprise after a terrible start. He's carved his way through traffic and now takes the lead. This is really remarkable, David.
Well, he has had an absolutely astounding drive. The first time past, he was between 19th and 20th. He made a terrible, terrible start, as you said, and he just made a great move there on Alain Prost. He used Alain Prost's slipstream to good effect. NASCAR watchers will appreciate that. Prost probably just balked a little bit there by Andrea de Cesaris. Not much, but just enough to get out of the throttle just a little bit, and Senna kept his foot in it, and here we see it again in replay as they go down the main straight, really using up that McLaren slipstream.
Look how
Prost moves over to block him, not suddenly, but he does push him way offline. As you can see there, Senna's in the dust and dirt on the inside of the track, and he nails Prost, takes the lead. Also has got round both those two slower cars, Gugelmin in the March and Andrea de Cesaris in the Real, and Senna has now got a good lead.
Well, Gugelmin is Senna's former roommate, and they're great pals, and he's between the leader and Alain Prost, whether that means anything or not. I think this will go down, David, as one of the really great drives of all time in Formula One racing, matching that drive of Juan Manuel Fangio's in the German Grand Prix in the mid-1950s. So Ayrton Senna of Brazil, back out front where he's been so many times this year in Formula One racing.
Well, Alain Prost seems to have disposed of the other two guys as well, and so he's right behind Senna now. They've both got a clear track. Oh, more back markers coming up on that LaRousse Campbell's car again, and also the second one of the Lotuses. So,
well, Mr. Senna's a tiger in traffic, and we'll watch him dispose of these guys. Whether that'll give Prost a chance to close in remains to be seen, but it looks like Mr. Senna is going to have his day today. Now here's Mr. Suzuki, his second spin of the day.
Looks like he's got too much brake on the back of that car to me. He always locks up the back wheels first, which is a good way to guarantee yourself the odd spin.
And not an impressive Formula One debut for Mr. Suzuki. Here, our new leader, Ayrton Senna, cruises pulling away from his teammate and arch rival Alain Prost in this Japanese Grand Prix. What a drive for Ayrton Senna of Brazil. His best drive so far of the year, and he's had several good ones. And he'll set a new record for victories if he stays out in front until such time as the checkered flag wave. A second and a half rather, separate the leading two cars, and it's been all Marlboro McLaren this year and today here at the Suzuka circuit in Japan.
I'm sure that their reign will come to an end next year, or they won't be anything like as dominant as they've been in 1988. And if they are, the world of motor racing is in for a horrible shock. There he's catching up one of the Camel Lotus Hondas. Honda engines again putting on a great display here on the Honda track here in Japan.
Senna must have a great feeling of personal satisfaction having come from that terrible start, gone through traffic, caught his teammate, and then overhauled him on that burst of speed down the straightaway. It was remarkable. There's the standings. Senna, Prost, Boutsen, Berger, Nannini, and Patrese with 28 of 51 laps in the books. Second and a half, still the interval between first and second. Boutsen way back, almost 9 seconds behind the leader.
Yeah, Boutsen's dropping off the pace down the normally aspirated Benetton Ford. That's Nelson Piquet, who's now in front of Ayrton Senna. Will he, in fact, hold him up? Obviously, Nelson Piquet is having a pretty adventurous day. He's been in the sand, out of the sand, into the pits, run into Nigel Mansell, and moves over very nicely to let his real arch rival from Brazil through, still maintaining a strong lead over Alain Prost.
Well, Ayrton Senna leading Alain Prost. Here the Japanese Grand Prix, yellow flags waving. We'll be back for more of this exciting automobile race after these commercial messages from the Suzuka circuit in Japan. November 12th at 11:30 p.m. Eastern. Gerhard Berger won.
Well, last year Berger won here too, but he's not winning this year. Ayrton Senna, here we see him here going down the long straight, and he's about to put up some laps on some lap traffic. There he goes, the inside of René Arnoux. Most of these drivers are very careful how they handle René Arnoux, and he's about to try and get around Eddie Cheever.
David, the drivers keep a mental book on everybody else in the race. Arnoux is notorious for using up a lot of racetrack, but Senna just waded in there like he wasn't worried.
Well, of course, that's one of Senna's trademark. He does tend to be very, very forceful and aggressive with traffic, and obviously today he's been particularly so as he's climbed up from somewhere like 20th in the field.
And now here we have Nelson Piquet down in the pit and taking it easy. It looks like his day is done. A tough break for the three-time world champion from Brazil. We've one Brazilian retiring and another one on his way to a world championship. And he slowly gets out of the car. The end of a long day for Nelson Piquet of Brazil. They seem to be treating him rather tenderly down there.
Well, he's had 2 stops in the pits today. The first time he came in with the seatbelts off. This time he's taken them off permanently and got out of the car. So we don't know quite why yet. Obviously some sort of mechanical failure of some sort, I would imagine.
He gets out rather gingerly there as the race continues, and Ayrton Senna, his fellow countryman, out in front, being pursued hotly by Alain Prost. Here is Prost in pursuit right now, and a good distance behind, 4.78 seconds behind. Boutsen still is third, and Nini Berger and Patrese round out the top 6. They're the ones who will earn the points in today's World Championship round.
Alain Prost coming up now to lap René Arnoux, who we saw lap just a couple of laps ago by Ayrton Senna, and Prost also giving him the benefit of the doubt as they come into the chicane. No, he did it easily.
Okay, now let's go down to John Bizignano with more on Nelson Piquet.
Thank you very much, Chris, and we found out the exact reason why Nelson Piquet has dropped out of this Grand Prix. He's actually too dizzy to continue. On Friday, he wasn't feeling well at all. Saturday, everything was okay. But during the first half of this race, the ailment came back. He came in for safety reasons and said, I'm just not feeling well enough, totally dizzy, to be safe out on the circuit. Nelson Piquet out because of health reasons. Back to you, Chris.
Okay, thank you, John. I hope it wasn't too much seaweed wine in the days leading up to this Grand Prix that has laid Nelson Piquet low. But the race continues, and Alain Prost still has his eye on the back of Ayrton Senna's number 12, his teammate, who's pulling further and further away. There he is, and right here, one of the Benetton Fords. These have been one of the great normally aspirated cars during this year's Formula One competition.
Well, Thierry's running in 3rd spot at the moment, and if he makes the podium yet again, the winner's podium, that'll be his 6th visit there this year, his 6th third place for this car, which actually is a pretty good run for the normally aspirated cars. Obviously as good as you could expect this year with the 4 powerful turbos of the 2 Honda engine McLarens and, of course, the 2 Ferraris.
Getting on the podium is very important in Formula One racing. The sponsors like to tout that to their customers that their car and their driver was on the podium at the end of a Grand Prix. Look at the heads bobbing around here, David. The track is pretty bumpy, I guess. What about the neck muscles? Well, a long race like this.
Well, of course, that is the problem. Not only just a long race like this, but this type of circuit that's constantly on the move. The car is constantly moving, very short straights to relax on, and it really is tough on the neck muscles. Here we see Thierry Boutsen's teammate, Alessandro Nannini, also running strongly in a normally aspirated car. He will stay with the team next year and will be joined by Johnny Herbert, the Englishman, and of course Thierry Boutsen himself is going to go and drive for the English team, Williams, and they'll be using the new Renault engine.
Well, you wonder about this young fellow Johnny Herbert in the hospital, banged up so badly in that Brands Hatch crash, whether he would really want to get back in a race car, but apparently he does, and he'll be on the Formula One circuit next year if he passes the physical. We'll be back for more of the Japanese Grand Prix after these. Back at the Japanese Grand Prix with Alain Prost trailing Ayrton Senna for the number 1 position on the track. And let's now go down to John Bizignano for a report from the pits.
Thank you very much, Chris. And actually, for the first time all season long, we have some very accurate information relative to the McLaren Camp's fuel consumption. At the moment, Ayrton Senna has an extra 0.8 of a liter left in the tanks. That means that he has that much extra fuel on the current power settings that he's using. And obviously those power settings are doing very well for him. So right now, Ayrton Senna is not looking at the gauges. He's only looking for that checkered flag. Back to you, Chris.
8/10 of a liter. That's only about 3 cups of coffee. It may be a lot in Formula One, but it doesn't sound like much. And now here, our leader, Ayrton Senna, is trying to get by Satoru Nakajima, who's having a pretty good day on his home track. And Mr. Senna had trouble there, but finally ducked inside of him and got through. This allows Alain Prost to close up substantially.
Well, that's the sort of thing with traffic, as I say earlier. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And in that particular instance, Senna definitely lost out. But, of course, now Alain Prost has got to get past the same obstacle. And he will be an obstacle here in front of his home crowd, Japan, because Nakajima does not want to lose face. And he also has got the same sort of horsepower that the two McLaren Hondas have got. Him with his Camel Lotus Honda.
What does protocol dictate in a case like this? Here we have the World Championship at stake, David, and Satoru Nakajima is out there in the way.
Well, of course, it's up to the passing driver to make the pass. You don't have to let them through. On the other hand, I always feel that if you're being lapped, for goodness sake, what is the point in getting in the way?
Well, it's a good way of looking at it. You've always been described as a gentleman driver, David. However, I have not always agreed with that observation. Yesterday, we asked Alain Prost about this very situation, he being second behind his teammate with a title at stake.
It's difficult. I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow morning. Just if I show everything, and also doing the rest, it will be difficult because he's a very tough driver on the track. And for sure, for him, winning championship is everything in his life, and it's going to be very tough for me. So I see what I can do. But I don't want to decide before, just judge at the right moment.
Now there's Satoru Nakajima in front of Alain Prost, who is chasing Ayrton Senna. Nakajima's not an easy man to get by either. Let's see how Prost handles the situation. He pulls out, slipstreams by, and whoa, he puts a chop on him, eh, David?
Well, he did really, but I think the long lens made it look just a bit worse than it was. But he's in a big rush to catch up with Ayrton Senna.
And that he needs to do that if he wants to become world driving champion. Ayrton Senna leading, and with 10 laps to go in the Japanese Grand Prix. Back with more after these messages. Holding down 4th place in his non-turbo Benetton Ford. Our leader is Ayrton Senna of Brazil. 2nd place is Alain Prost of France. And right now, Nannini is chasing Michele Alboreto, who spent some time in a sand trap early in the day.
Well, he's trying to get round him because he obviously wants to hold on to that 4th spot. And lurking just out of the picture there is Gerhard Berger. There you see him coming into the picture, Gerhard Berger, who is, of course, Alboreto's teammate, who also wants 4th spot.
Okay, here we have our leader, Ayrton Senna, pulling further and further away, and there's just waving his hand. Whether he's celebrating or pointing to the cloudy skies, we don't know, but he's moving further and further ahead of his challenger, Alain Prost.
And he's still waving out of the car, and we don't see Prost either, who's obviously dropped back a lot. And I'm not quite sure what he's waving for. He's either saying I'm number 1, or he's pointing up to the heavens and saying it's raining. It looks as if it might be raining in some parts. One of those cameras looked like it has... His tyres, in fact, look a little bit damp, but I don't see any spray coming down.
That's right. It's probably wet on one side of the track and not necessarily the other, but it's not slowing Ayrton Senna down any. In fact, he's increasing that margin. And there he's letting everybody know that he feels confident he's going to be the winner of today's Japanese Grand Prix.
Certainly is some slick on those tyres. You can see it shining there. So there must be quite a bit of damp out there on the track, in which case it would be extremely slippery. At the end, yes, you can see the rain there falling. Ron Dennis looking a bit long in the mouth, and Gordon Murray there. I don't know why they'd be too unhappy. Their cars are lying 1st and 2nd. Can't be too bad. There we see the difference now. 5.6 seconds between 1st and 2nd spot.
I say, David, do you think that Ayrton Senna has made up now for his miscue in Italy?
Well, I think so. The Italian thing was really just a racing accident. Both he and Slesser have to hold some of the blame, but it was just one of those things that happens in racing.
Well, 5 more turns of the track before the checkered flag will wave, and if it stays this way, you're looking at the new world driving champion, Ayrton Senna of Brazil, who will take the title with 1 race left, the Australian Grand Prix, on the 13th of November. I'm
sure he'll be ecstatic if he does win the championship, but Ayrton Senna is one of those guys who, although he is very emotional, he doesn't show it much, and it'll be hard to know that he is ecstatic.
Well, that's for sure. Mr. Senna very rarely smiled during this season. We may see some smiles when this is all over today. He is a very stoic type of person, portrays no emotion outwardly, but obviously it bubbles up inside of him. Smoothly circling this racetrack here, good distance from Tokyo, one of the finest racing circuits in the world, and certainly Japan's finest circuit, far far ahead of the Suzuki one, which is near, the Fuji one, which is near Tokyo.
Well, Senna's showing some real skill and class now, because that track looks incredibly slippery to me. You can see the little bit of spray coming off those slick tires, and when they say slick in conditions like these, they really are slick, especially when the race is nearly full run.
We've seen several other drivers spin off the circuit, but no slips by Ayrton Senna, or for that matter, Alain Prost. And we'll be back for the finish of the Japanese Grand Prix after these messages. On the track in front of leader Ayrton Senna, Luis Parisella, the Spanish driver in the Minardi, next to be overcome by the Bravura Brazilian in number 12 as he heads for victory here in Suzuka, Japan, and his first World Driving Championship. Alain Prost, a good distance behind, still within sight, but sort of hopeless, don't you think, David?
Yes, I think that Alain Prost will be definitely more cautious in these very, very slippery conditions than Ayrton Senna. And as he said earlier on in that interview, Ayrton Senna wants to win this World Championship, his first World Championship, in the worst possible way. And although Alain Prost would love to win a third championship, I don't think he's about to jeopardize either his life or the car to achieve that end.
And there we have the standings. 6.6 seconds separate Alain Prost from leader Ayrton Senna. Terry Boutsen of Belgium is third. Gerhard Berger of Austria fourth. Alessandro Nannini and Riccardo Patrese of Italy fifth and sixth in this competition that's slowly winding down. 51 laps, 47 complete. Actually, 3 laps to go. The cars and drivers are on their 48th lap on this beautiful Suzuka circuit, built originally for motorcycle. And Ayrton Senna of Brazil on his way to a record 8th victory in 1 year, an unprecedented record never before established. And no one had thought anyone would ever do that. These cars have only tasted defeat once in 15 races. And that's remarkable. That was being Italy when Ferrari triumphed on the racetrack there.
What a day for the Italian crowd that was too. And this is going to be a day for the Japanese crowd, because obviously the engines in these McLarens are, of course, Honda's. Honda own the circuit, Honda a Japanese engine. These crowd here absolutely desperate to see a Honda win the World Championship, the Manufacturers Championship, and of course this race here in Japan.
You know, it's remarkable, David. The Italians were so emotionally moved out on the track, 100,000 of them strong, yelling and screaming, while the Japanese are very sedate, very reserved. They must feel inside the same as the Italians feel, but they certainly don't show it in the same way.
No, that's true. And there we see Ayrton Senna. You can see how humid it is out there. Those the wings still throwing off vapor trails as the air's compressed. It goes out over those wings and squeezes the moisture out into those little vortexes that come off the edge of the wings.
It's interesting that the moisture is so heavy in the air today, as you can see it right to the naked eye as it swishes. Oh, there it is, over the either end of the rear wing. You can see it. And there it is on the Minardi, the moisture condensing off the back of the wing. Remarkable things happen at high speeds to things mechanical.
And of course, Ayrton Senna is pulling away slowly from his teammate. Now look at Ayrton Senna. He goes over both those curbs on that chicane. And Alain Prost very, very rarely does that at that chicane. And yet he clips both apexes and puts the wheel right over it. You can see the water there on the lens of that camera up in the grandstand. Senna passes the line yet again. That must make him 2 laps to go to his first World Championship.
When you talk about going over those rumble strips, that apparently, David, is a difference here at any rate between winning and losing.
Well, it certainly seems to be giving Ayrton Senna a bit of an advantage at the moment, but it's certainly not giving me any disadvantage to do it. Obviously, all these drivers now, Senna as well, being very, very careful, because this is the slipperiest type of condition you can get. A light drizzle on a track that's already had the full race distance run on it, practically. There we see the Minardi, and here comes Alain Prost into this view now, nearly 10 seconds behind. He's losing 2.5 to 3 seconds a lap.
Well, I guess he realizes that the chase is over with. He just wants to hold on to second base. But think about the race we've seen today, David, with that start where Senna's car almost stalled, not once but twice, and by the time he got it percolating, he was at the back of the grid. He carved through so many cars. He was 12th on the official score sheet at the end of the first lap, and a few laps later he was 4th. Now here he is. Look at him weaving in and out of traffic. He's out in front. If there ever was a deserving winner today, it is the Brazilian Ayrton Senna in car number 12.
Well, there's no doubt about it. He is a traffic master, and it's a pity that early on in the race we had a very good dust-up up front between Alain Prost and Ivan Capelli, who we've all tended to rather forgotten about. It'd be interesting to see how well he'd be doing in these conditions. And while all that was going on at the front, Ayrton Senna must have been putting on an incredible display right back in the field there. He was about 20th the first time past. He must have been polishing off people right, left and centre and putting on a great display. Unfortunately, we weren't able to see it.
Well, he's taken care of all of those problems, and he just now has his fingers crossed that everything stays together on the race car, that there's enough fuel, and that nothing happens and nobody gets in his way, much as Mr. Schlesser did in Monza.
Well, I'm sure if they do get in his way, he'll approach the whole thing in a slightly different manner to the way he approached it in Monza. It was kind of his fault in lots of ways. Down to one lap now, just one lap for Ayrton Senna for his first World Championship.
And, you know, we saw some sparks there from the bars underneath the car. We've not seen those before today. You'd think with the car quite light, we wouldn't see it bottoming like that. But he maybe took a different line as he passed those slower cars on this zigzag Suzuka circuit.
It certainly is a zigzag circuit, and there's only just a few of those zigs and zags to go for old Senna there, who's going to win his first World Championship, and probably won't be his last either. But I'm sure it won't either be the last time that Alain Prost finishes first in a race.
His own career, he's been beaten time and again by Ayrton Senna. They were very pally wells at the beginning of the season, and you can see the rivalry develop as the season wore on. And Senna came into this race not saying anything, and Prost was smiling at everybody, telling him how confident he was about the championship and the end of the season. No, it wasn't to be, as we've seen today.
Well, slow up to take the checkered flag. He's still putting down 400 or 500 horsepower. There he's got one up.
The checkered flag is waved. Ayrton Senna has won the Grand Prix of Japan, and with it, the 1988 World Driving Championship.
There we see Nakajima taking the flag, also in the Honda engine. And now Ayrton Senna's trying to get his visor up. He wants everybody to get a good look at him as he goes round on his victory lap. And what a victory it is, too. Victory in more ways than one. Victory in this race in Japan, and, of course, victory in the World Championship.
Well, and Alain Prost takes the checkered flag 13.363 seconds behind. Terry Boutsen is third, up to due to take the checkered. Right now, there's Boutsen getting waved down by the official starter. Gerhard Berger should be next in car number 28, the Ferrari. And
it almost does look as if he's crying. Now, that is another side to Senna that we haven't seen. This year, it's been hard to get a smile out of him. It's also hard to get a smile out of this guy, Ron Dennis, but he's smiling now.
Oh, finish after these messages. To you by Quaker State Motor Oil. The big Q stands for quality. Your dealer. 8-year-old Brazilian Ayrton Senna gets out of his car for the 15th time this season with 8 victories, winning more than half his start. He's the world champion. Now, you may ask why Alain Prost, if he wins in Australia and gets 9 points, would not be the champion. Well, you can only use 3 of those because you can only count your best 11 finishes, which would tie him with Senna. And then Senna would be the champion based on the number of wins. Berger also is locked into 3rd place in the final points for 1988. It's been a great season with races all over the world, and Ayrton Senna and Team McLaren dominant on the racetracks of this world, being only surpassed once, that by Ferrari in Italy. The fans here in Japan, very quiet and sedate, but they like to see their engines perform well, which they're doing here. And winner Ayrton Senna stands at high number 1 position at the podium. Alain Prost, his teammate, to his right, and Terry Boutsen in green 3rd. They are the Formula One points there, and they salute the crowd. We had a chance to talk with winner Ayrton Senna.
I still cannot believe it's over. It's been a long season, I think, for me and for Alain, and it's been amazing fighting between us. A lot of pressure on both of us, and outdoors we always try to minimize the pressure to make it less painful. It's impossible, and it was very hard, and I still cannot believe it's finished.
And so Ayrton Senna of Brazil and Alain Prost of France, 1st and 2nd again. Belgians Terry Boutsen 3rd, Austria's Gerhard Berger 4th, Italians Alessandro Nannini, Riccardo Patrese 5th and 6th, 17 running at the finish here. And now, David Hobbs, your thoughts on today's Japanese Grand Prix.
Well, when the light turned green, Ayrton Senna's thoughts must have turned blue, and he must have thought he had absolutely lost the World Championship right there and then. But he drove a magnificent race today. Prost was not perfect. Senna was as close as could be and won the race and the championship in very tricky conditions. John, what have you got to say about it?
My closing comment is a compliment to Ayrton Senna. He was under a lot of pressure here, and that same pressure sort of destroyed his racing during the last third of this season, and certainly he did have trouble here at the start of this race. But he came through, he drove up all the way through the field, went around Prost somewhat easily, and actually on to victory. Congratulations to Ayrton Senna. He is a true champion. I'm sure there's many more left in his career. We're packing up on our way to Australia, 2 weeks' time. See you then.
Thank you, John. Well, my feeling is that what went on today on the Suzuka track will go down in Grand Prix history as one of the greatest drives by a driver, Ayrton Senna. But the question I ask is, what does it take to make Ayrton Senna smile? This is Chris Economaki, along with David Hobbs and John Bisognano, saying so long. We'll see you all again from the finale in Adelaide, Australia on the 12th.